doing it. You brought it up. Let's talk about it. Snubs. SWAC snubs. We all know that there's some snubs out there for other conferences. But since we're HBCUs podcast, we're going to touch on HBCUs that got snubbed, namely Florida A&M, finished 9-2. It was argued that I think I read it for HBCU Game Day. It was argued that sure they had the same record as they did last year. They won the out of conference games that, not counting the FBS, that's Carolina, the Power Five is Carolina. But the difference was that how each of those teams were. I think they played South Carolina State. FAMU did. And South Carolina State ended up sucking. Which is not FAMU's fault. But going back to what you said, it's similar to how the College Football Playoff Committee on the Power Five level, on FBS level, breaks down their picks of who they rank, or who their top four are at the end of the year. It's about who you beat, who you play, who you beat, right? It's like the teams that FAMU beat, unfortunately, weren't that great this year, record-wise. Okay? And I know that Deion Sanders said in the tweet that, I'm just paraphrasing, I don't remember word for word, but basically bemoaning FAMU's snub. That they're 9-2. I mean, he went hard on the mat for them.
Yeah.
Like they finished 9-2. And I think that even though that committee is not supposed to factor this in, I think part of that factored in what happened to FAMU last year in the playoffs. They got hammered, I think, by Jacksonville State.
No, it was Southeastern Louisiana.
Okay, that's right, Southeast Louisiana, my bad. All right. So, yeah. So I think, those committee members are human.
Yes,
I'm
they
not
are.
making excuses for them, but it is what it is. So I think that kind of played to the psyche as well. So basically, you touched on it. You might as well finish that segment of the conversation. Was it a true snub? Was FAMU snub, or did the committee get it right in leaving them out?
Ooh, I'm about to say something a lot of people are not going to like.
Uh-oh. Go ahead. That's why I got you on. One of the reasons.
Right. So if we're going off the metrics that the committee is going off of,
yes,
I'm going to say yes, they did not get snubbed because of the fact that and this is the thing that bothers me, and I'm actually looking to do a piece on this, so I'm not going to go too in depth with this right now.
Sure, of course.
But I will say this: when you talk about the level of competition that they're playing within the conference, and because their conference is so big. And they do want to play not only just their allotted slate, which they did. The other conference opponents were Albany State,
right,
and Albany State, South Carolina State, and North Carolina. And I actually talked to, I asked Alabama A&M head coach, Connell Maynor about this earlier this morning because he kind of touched on playing against out-of-conference opponents. And basically he said something that we've been echoing for years, that as HBCUs, we have to play against out-of-conference opponents that will generate revenue for us.
Right.
With that Albany State game being a classic for Florida A&M, with, of course, them playing a former conference rival that I believe they did a home and home with in South Carolina State, and then of course they went to Chapel Hill and got that dough from Carolina. You got to remember that these schedules are scheduled in advance. The same thing that Willie Simmons said today. You play those games, and unfortunately, as HBCUs, you most definitely have financial issues in terms of the amount of money that we have to work with, and look to create avenues of revenue for us to stay afloat. Right. And a lot of times, football is that sport that does such a thing, followed by basketball. The beatdowns that football takes helps keep the lights on for everyone else.
Right.
And unfortunately, in a lot of instances, they don't take on those out-of-conference opponents that would probably help be more attractive to the committee in terms of playing against quality out of conference FCS opponents, or what I would suggest as well, playing those lower tier FBS opponents. Because if you beat an FBS opponent, regardless, well, I shouldn't say regardless, because some will say, yeah, you beat a low level FBS opponent, but others within the committee be like, but they still beat an FBS opponent. So if you were to take those on and probably take those mid-range quality FCS opponents and put them on your schedule to have at least two of those type games, along with whatever money grab you can get, along with your conference schedule, then that would help you in your pursuit of being an at-large bid, within the FCS playoffs. But multiple things that are issues there. One, like I said before, the money thing. Two, they already look at the conferences, both the MEAC and the SWAC, as being inferior as it pertains to level of competition. So even if you beat up everybody within your conference, like Florida A&M has done for the past 2 seasons, the committee will say something that I said on Sleazy Sports, my other podcasts, multiple times over, which is WDP, who they play. I don't care if you're 9-2. Who did you beat? Did you beat anyone of quality? If not, based upon the metrics that we use, we can't put you into the playoffs as an at-large regardless of what your conference, regardless of what your overall record is. 9 wins is nice, but WDP. I also understand that if you look at their resume this year, it's extremely similar to their resume from last year based upon who they beat. I will say one of the caveats, of course, is the fact that South Carolina State did go on to win the MEAC as opposed to this year. But let's be real, South Carolina State was still a sub-500 team there too.
Right.
My God. If my memory serves me correctly, though, you have to take into consideration that there were a lot of non-HBCU media that was lobbying for Florida A&M to be in the playoffs, even dating back to the beginning of last season, along with the fact that there were several teams that were on the bubble ahead of them that did end up losing that last week. So that all of that, the circumstances just fell right for that to happen. And I kind of wish I would have wrote that article because it would have been evidence of me thinking this. But I said that was a dangerous pattern to try to recreate. But at the same time, it's still kind of a blueprint for the SWAC to attempt to do. The thing is, though, in order for it to happen, like I said, all those things need to fall right so that they can get in as an at-large, be it that they have to have at least 8 or 9 wins. Well, there has to be 9 wins because you can't have too many out-of-conference losses. And the only conference loss you can have will be to the eventual champion or at least divisional champion. 2, all of those other teams that are on the bubble, again, like I said before, have to lose.
Yeah.
But, if you ask some, those teams did lose. But those teams also had quality wins, too. So it's oh, my God. It's the thing that I've said for the past few years now. Couple of things. One, how much attention do we really need to put into the coaches poll? Yeah. That's one. And like I said, I'm not going to go into too much context on that. I'm going to talk about that in the article in the piece that I'm working on now. And 2, do we need to really care about the FCS playoffs? I truly believe, being that they don't take the quality of football seriously within those 2 conferences, the MEAC and the SWAC. Okay, you don't care? We don't care. Our focuses need to be on the Celebration Bowl and to the subject matter that we discussed last week as it pertains to the creation of additional bowl games for more revenue.
Right.
So yeah, I really think that needs to be the focus now. They continuously have done this to us. It has happened several times over the past 3 seasons, and
Mhm.
shout out to Willie Simmons, who most definitely doesn't forget, because as he was running down the names of the programs that were shunned over the past few years, I'm sitting there shaking my head like, yeah, 2019, South Carolina State, they had a huge case on why they should have made it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and didn't. And you know, a lot of people love to bring up the fact that HBCUs play against D2 programs, and that's part of the reason why the committee doesn't respect us. You know what? For you FCS HBCU purists out there, you want us to get in the playoffs? Donate more money. But until
More
then,
resources, exactly.
yeah, so we don't have to play those games. You know, that's one of the things that a lot of these other programs don't have to do because they have enough money to basically operate off and not have concerns about. But until then, let us play our money games. Let us go ahead and play for the Celebration Bowl and potentially add on new bowls to generate more revenue. And don't give a damn about the FCS playoffs. Don't even care. Be married to who you're going to be married to, and stop trying to flirt with that girl over there just because you think she's cute. She don't like you at all, though.
Yeah.
She don't even care about you. That's even funnier, right? So
Mhm.
it was announced during the summer that Arkansas Pine Bluffs athletics director A.D. Robinson was supposed to be on the selection committee for the FCS playoffs this year. I don't know if that year was named right or not. If it's the 2020, it can't be the 2023 season because I think a couple of the people on the committee still have at least 2 years left. But either way, the theory was he was supposed to come in and be that voice to help get HBCUs into the playoffs, but he's not even on the committee based upon the committee
Wow.
list. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, what happened there? I'm still trying to get an understanding on what's going on with that. But again, that could be information that I have wrong. But that's just the article that I just remember that announcement being made, and I just find it weird that he's not on the committee now. But I digress. But again, I just go back to the whole thing of focus on who you're married to. As of right now, we're married to the Celebration Bowl. If we can go ahead and convince the powers that be to help us expand and continue to help us generate revenue and do that, then let's do that. And don't concern ourselves over an entity that doesn't value